your story is interesting for a couple of reasons, but one one aspect of the story that I find fascinating to a lot of people that I talk to is you were, we'll say, a classically trained nutritionist. You went to school for nutrition. You didn't just watch a couple of YouTube videos to figure this out, but you came on the other side of this with the idea that maybe some vegetables aren't okay to eat. And that's, I mean, I'm pretty sure you didn't learn that in nutrition school. So let's get into, what you were taught, and then what this transition looked like as you started to learn more about oxalates and how plants actually nourish our body or don't nourish our body.
Yeah. So classic nutrition education, is that our key question right now?
Sure.
Yeah. Cornell is considered one of the top schools for nutrition, up there with Harvard and a couple schools in California and one in Michigan. And that's like it. Those are the big ones in the country. And I thought I was going to a great school. And it was really surprising in retrospect how much unlearning I had to do. I had to become unafraid of supplements. I had to learn that sugar was not benign. I was told directly by a professor that sugar was benign except for dental caries. Now, you probably wouldn't agree with that.
No, I certainly wouldn't.
That's literally what one of the professors said. And we got a lot of pre-digested opinions like that. Instead of really learning how to learn and getting deeper into, how food is made and the effects on the body and how that gets studied and what we don't know, it was more like the professors would come up with these proclamations that we would believe because, hey, it was our professors. And it takes a while to undo that. And there's a lot of undoing and a lot of big gaps that you don't even know we're missing. Like, how does agriculture affect the quality of the food we eat? How does, in food prep classes, we did not learn about oxalates and whether cooking does or doesn't change things. We didn't learn about things like lectins, which are another chemical that are in, quote, natural foods that can be trouble for our health. Mm-hmm. So I don't remember learning much except tea could interfere with calcium and absorption. So you shouldn't have your tea with your meal, but space it like an hour after your meal. Like really simplistic things, nothing really deep about these chemicals that plants make, of which oxalate is a major one that can get us into trouble with our health. So yeah, my education is a frustration. And it's unfortunately that a lot of people in the dietetics profession haven't really explored past some of these basic rules they were taught at the feet of their professors. It's really holding us back.
Yeah, I bet. So what was your first kind of clue that what you were learning wasn't right?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, I came up in an era before vegetarianism was accepted in nutrition. Okay. I was taught by a book called The Diet for a Small Planet.
Oh yeah.
Remember that? That was like a big thing in the early 1980s, late 70s, about we needed to spare the poor people of our meat eating, and that if we didn't eat meat, we could help the planet be a healthier place. And that was a whole premise of how to combine soy plus, other plants to try to get complete proteins, because plants don't have complete proteins, but you can get around that, and all this adding soy to everything. And at that time, that was a new idea. And it used to be that we always knew that a sugar-controlled, moderate carbohydrate diet that was built on animal foods was good nutrition for humans. But that shifted dramatically around that time at the end of the 1970s. And so people came up like T. Colin Campbell, who was one of my professors at Cornell, who were very pro-vegetarian, probably for ideological reasons because of concerns about animal rights, and were able to use their background in nutrition as a lever to make this other argument that there was some nutritional advantage to going in that direction of vegetarianism. So I was influenced heavily at the dawn of that whole explosion of acceptance now in the professions, and even took a course at Cornell called Diet for a Small Planet as a summer class. So where are we going with this?
Well, that's what you were taught. What was the first thing that kind of got in your head that thought that maybe this vegetarianism, the spinach wasn't the wonder food that you've been taught it was. Where I just want to know where that began.
Well, there's many scales on one's eyes that need to drop for you
Right.
to finally see something. And it's been a long journey. I mean, during my vegetarian years, I turned vegan 8 years later for an additional 8 years. And during that time, I learned that I needed supplements. My health was falling apart at the dawn of my vegan years, and I'd never connected it with the diet until much later when I was in graduate school and really, really struggling. And it became clear to me at a very low point that I was not able to tolerate wheat and beans anymore. And I was pretty sure I wasn't tolerating dairy very well. Of course, I've been convinced out of that by John Robbins' Diet for a New America book. Right. So I was during graduate school, I was forced out of the vegan thing from my health. And I didn't really connect that diet had malnourished me and depleted me and just destroyed my brain and my energy level at all. I was also, because I knew that sugar was benign, right? That I was allowed to have jelly on toast and eat like that all the time. Like jelly was free food. It didn't hurt you. And so I was pretty sugar addicted. And I learned at that point that I needed to get off the sugar. And it took me 3-year struggle just to get over my own carb addiction. And that was a long time ago. And got over that and added meat back and learned the Weston Price Foundation concepts of butter isn't bad for you. That was another one I learned at Cornell, that butter is the most saturated fat out there and it's absolutely horrible for you because of that. And then there's one of my colleagues in school worked for an organization later her whole career and got very down on coconut oil for the same reason. So, I was like, it took a while for me to get over the fear of fat. I was, during vegan years, low salt, low fat, sugar's fine. And I mean, it's the most ridiculous diet. And as for someone who's trained in nutrition, I mean, there are plenty of plump diabetic dietitians out there who don't know what they're doing, So, boy, having a mainstream education requires a lot of re-education. Unfortunately, I had to do it the hard way.
So how did you find your first Weston Price book? How did that come across your?
Well, I worked for the program on integrated medicine at the University of North Carolina Medical School. So we were putting together a grant when I started and we got funded with this grant, and I ran this grant for the full 5 years of the program. That was federal funding, so we could try to integrate concepts and information around holistic healing and the alternative medicine practices within the curriculum of conventional training in medicine, nursing, dentistry, pharmacy, public health. We were hoping to cover all the bases because we had a full suite of those health professions at UNC and serve the whole state for continuing ed programs across the state through the AHEC system. So my boss at the program of integrated medicine had a brochure on her door that was pro raw milk.
Okay.
And that caught my eye. I thought, really? Raw milk? Wait a minute. That's not what I was taught in school at all, that raw milk was okay, not only okay, but preferable and good for you. Mm-hmm. And that introduced me to the Weston Price Foundation in 1999 when they were a fairly young organization back then. So I was very blessed to have that leap from vegetarianism to Weston Price. So got comfortable with butter and later on found raw milk for a patient and used raw cream to revive a patient who was essentially so brain damaged by the medical treatment he got in the hospital that my boss in the department we were housed in wanted to discharge him to a nursing home. And his mother begged that he didn't do that. And so she came to us at the program of integrated medicine to come up with a program to try to help him. And I used raw cream as part of his program. And by the time he left the hospital, he had recovered his ability to walk, talk, think, and be a human being. But the department had predicted that he would never do any of those things again. And I inherited the raw cream from the patient who went back to slice and bake cookies. But I had arranged this delivery of raw cream for him, and that got me going on trying to make my own butter and my own sour cream. And at the beginning, I was so afraid of dairy, I made it into the most delicious sour cream, but didn't dare eat that. And then I'd make it into butter. Then I'd make it into ghee so that I'd be spared of all milk proteins. But eventually, I got sucked into tasting the sour cream, which was God's nectar, fabulous. And then the farmer was saying, come on, have some milk, try some milk. And I got pulled back into discovering that raw milk from A2 cows, and I'm not even sure if there's worry to, was perfectly fine for me, and so on. So through my trials and tribulations and just being connected to the world of healing and being in a role to try to think outside the box, helped me eventually get to something that's finally working.